the elevator pitch for our customers is effectively this. Moving away from traditional spindle architecture to flash means multiplying your throughput, multiplying your IOPS, minimizing rack space, minimizing power, minimizing cooling, improving reliability, and doing it all at a comparable CapEx spend to what you're paying today for the same number of terabytes. That is the pitch. And customers, they engage this, they see this, and they end up buying a lot of our product. We have multiple customers this year that have bought in first orders, well into 7 figures, 100+ terabytes, initial deployment kinds of deployments. So we've definitely hit our stride as a company, and this value proposition really resonates. And the beautiful thing about it is it becomes very addictive as a technology, because once you deliver a certain level of performance within a department of a large organization, it spreads like wildfire within those organizations. So we're having a great time, and we're solving a lot of customer problems, and it's a pretty exciting time to be at Nimbus. Okay.
What's your head count at Nimbus?
Oh yeah, so we're getting close to 50 now. Yeah. So actually, that's a good point. So we're in South San Francisco as our headquarters. Actually, if you end up going up and down the 101 at all out of the city, Oyster Point Boulevard, which is, just take a look, you'll see our building sign.
You have the sign on the building yet?
We do.
All
yeah,
right,
signs on the
there you
building,
go.
lit up at night. It's cool. It's got the whole halo effect. We did this kind of cool lighting thing where it glows. Anyway,
Is it that curved one on the west side?
it is on the east side of 101.
Okay.
No, I know the one you're talking about. That actually was bought by SAP.
Oh, okay.
That built, yeah, a good chunk of the building.
I drove by that every day for 3 years.
They're going to look at our logo all day, though. I like that. I'm sorry. We also opened up in the UK. So we have a team in the UK. We have a team in the Netherlands. And we're getting ready to get into Australia here pretty soon, too.
Yeah, you were this is Europe.
Yep, we were there this year. Yeah, we're also at the VMworld Europe. We're also at the Storage Expo in the Netherlands. Yep, we're at IP Expo in London. Yep. Yep. Actually, the UK team is on fire. There's a huge amount of pent-up demand there between the financial services, the data centers. They love this stuff. We have a great team there, though, too, but the customers are very excited about this. Just quickly on support, we provide global support. So we have about 150 forward stocking locations throughout the US alone that have the FRUs in place so that we can deliver a 4-hour response time to our customers for on-site parts replacement. That would be what we call the gold level. We also have silver and bronze. So 24/7, all those kinds of things are part of our support offerings. Yes?
Is your support internal, part of that 50 people, or do you have outsourced third party, et cetera?
For the technical support, it's all internal. So when you call 877 or you call the 6 Nimbus number, you get a Nimbus person who sits a stone's throw away from the developers. The actual field techs, that we outsource.
Okay.
It's basically a carrier function of delivering a part, and as you can see, it's pretty easy to service. Yeah. All right, so thought we could talk a little bit about the competition and how that stacks up against us. We feel very confident in our product offering. So here we'll just look at one unnamed company, competitor V, and compare the throughput, IOPS, density. I have to pick a letter. I'm going to just say competitor. Capacity and latency. So you can see, and here we're looking at MLC products versus MLC products. Just to be clear, this is public data as of a couple of months ago. Still accurate from what we view today. So from a throughput perspective, we're about 8 times where our competitor is, being at 160 gigabits with our product versus 2 gigabits from this competitor. We're more than double the IOPS capabilities. From a density perspective, even though this particular competitor went to that top-loading design, we actually achieved more than double the density while still providing the familiar, easier-to-service front-loading design. From a maximum capacity perspective, we've got them beat by a pretty wide margin, about 15x, because we scale to 500 terabytes. And from a latency perspective, we're right there. We're actually even a wee bit faster as well. So
But they can run VMware on theirs.
It is a platform capable of running all sorts of things, if customers want to do that. We haven't seen that yet, to be honest. That is of true interest.
They only have 48 gig of memory, so they can't run any actual VMs. They can just run VMware.
Thank you. I mean, I didn't want to be driving the bus. You can drive that bus.
But Stephen doesn't know about the direct access of the DRAM, just DRAM everywhere.
I think VMs on VMware is overrated.
This is another comparison just on other metrics. So from a connectivity perspective, we've got the block and the file capabilities, and also I think from a snapshot perspective, it's a big difference to actually be the company developing the software as opposed to being the company that's licensing someone else's software and trying to get it to run on your platform like this unnamed competitor is attempting to do. Also, of course, it has the benefit of, since we develop the code, we bundle that capability with our product. There's no licensing fees. So customers get a kit and one throat to choke for the whole solution.
So Tom, of course, the obvious question then is, just taking a hypothetical unnamed competitor, why are they on the road to a $2 billion IPO and you aren't?
Well, I think we're on the road to a $4 billion IPO, to be frank.
Because they have a louder CEO.
I think, well, there's a strategy I think they've taken to kind of pile stuff in. And we'll see how that works. I think, though, this is sort of a natural progression. If you look where Fusion IO started kind of at the component level, and I think what they're doing is sort of, for the most part, a largely externalized version of that. And I think the top of the food chain comes when you've got that plus the whole software stack as a kit. And if they're operating at 1.5-year intervals between these 3 steps, they're just on time. And then we'll be that top of the food chain 1.5 years later. But make no bones about it, I think from a financial perspective, we're making more money as a company actually than both Fusion and this unnamed competitor. And that is just as important to us. We want to build a business that is sustainable for the long run.
More margin?
More net income. Net income. I also think margin's a pretty important thing too. And we
You
very
mean
important.
you're actually in business to make money?
Yeah.
That's un-American.
It's definitely not common in storage. So I think we have even grander expectations, but you won't see us, I think, going out advertising valuations. Who does that? I mean, that's strange. Come on, let's get some class here. Competitor P is another one I'll just juxtapose. And in this particular example, what I want to show is what the mega difference is between off-the-shelf hardware and purpose-built hardware, and why we think this is so important. In this particular case, you can see this company, they're less than 10% the performance of our product, and we know exactly why. For one, they're deduping every single I/O, so they're adding latency, they're adding compute, they're adding all this overhead, and then they're just taking the actual very same SAS JBOD that NetApp resells as a SAS JBOD. They take the exact same thing from the guys over at Xyratex, and they just put Samsung SSDs in it instead of Seagate or Hitachi drives. And so they're inheriting all the same performance bottlenecks that every other disk array vendor has with their architecture. And I think that shows here in the throughput and the IOPS. It also shows in just the, frankly, miserable density that off-the-shelf hardware gets compared to purpose-built hardware. Here we're sticking 24 terabytes per U compared to 1 terabyte per U. So this is another reason why we build our own hardware. In terms of scale, we can scale very well because of the architecture that we've done 45 times better than this particular competitor, and then a huge one, power consumption. Look, that small device versus a cacophony of controllers and external JBODs that are wired together, you can see it gives us a better than 10x power efficiency. This particular vendor is seemingly intentionally vague about what its actual latency is, but I think we can agree that there's about 10x difference between 0.1 and less than 0.1. So there's a big difference there too. And then from a software perspective as well, we've got the block and file covered in a single platform. We've got all the major interconnects in a single platform. And then key features like replication and encryption that are lacking from this particular competitor, which we have as part of our product, standard features. Was I more or less subtle with this one?
Yeah, you're about
Sorry.
But I mean, clearly, I mean, the big difference between these two competitors and Nimbus is these guys have taken a lot of venture
Yes.
money and they've used it to turbocharge their growth. Now,
But they built a really
competitor P,
nice
I don't know
beer
what the hell
pool.
they spent their money on, but,
Yeah.
you know, it's certainly, you know, gotten out there out of the gate a lot faster.
I don't think so. I think actually from a top line perspective, the competitor V, yes. Competitor P, absolutely not. We're way ahead. And from a bottom line perspective.
In market share, but they've done very well in mind share.
Well, at the end of the day, I think on a financial statement, there's no mind share row. But you know, we'll see.
Fair enough.
But you make a good point, and that's what makes this, I think, such an amazing story. If we take this to an IPO as we believe we can, I'm not aware of any other storage systems company in the last 10, 15 years, maybe longer, who's actually ever accomplished that without institutional financing.
Right.
So, and it also has instilled a lot of discipline in the business, and I think that's something that, you know, when the market is frothy like it is now, maybe people don't pay attention to, but sooner or later the stuff hits the fan, and then people really pay attention to it, and there'll be solid businesses and those that are, I won't call them, maybe not quite the same.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, a fast-growing business, I mean, putting my financial hat on, fast-growing business chews up a lot of cash. And so, you know, the working process and inventory and accounts
Sure.
receivable and all that stuff,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, are you doing debt financing? I mean, how the hell are you growing, how the hell are you growing the business?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure your margins are great. I'll assume they're 60% gross margins. But still, if you're growing 500% a year,
Yeah.
60% gross margins isn't going to cover it. So there's something in here, Tom, that doesn't add up for a finance guy.
Well, you'd have to see all the details, I think. But so
Sure.
I will say there are less expensive sources of capital to fund working capital needs than equity. We actually have not taken any debt, believe it or not, outside the company Amex. But you know, that's a vehicle that, you know, should it be necessary, you know, we can obviously go get. But it's a unique story, and Scott's working on some stuff where people think the story is so unique it sort of flies in the face of all the conventional thinking. I get the privilege of going once a year to Princeton, which is where one of our investors is a professor, just to talk about how we built a business without institutional financing to these undergraduates who have been hearing the traditional kind of HBS, Sand Hill Road strategy, and it's a lot of fun. So, you know, we want to make history both with the technology, but we think we'll also make some history with the business and the way we built it.
Yeah, on the other hand, there's a certain endorsement from having the right
Sure.
players from Sand Hill Road.
Yeah.
That, yeah, that you have to know that there is some portion of the customer community who just views you as too good to be true, because, you know, you're completely private and don't have that endorsement, and yeah, they just don't believe it.
Yeah, and that is one way to do it, and without a doubt, that does. I think it has helped the mind share efforts of other companies. We're doing it more the old-fashioned way with customers.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think that they can both be effective. For us, I mean, when we announced, for example, a significant deployment at eBay, that was kind of a watershed.
That was a
event.
big endorsement.
Yeah, and there have been others, and you'll see others. eBay, of course, is one now that's nearing about 0.5 petabyte deployed on our technology. That 2 years ago was 3 terabytes. So significant footprint that we've been able to grow all around VMware. We cut their power consumption. We dramatically improved provisioning time. In this case, it was actually straight up against their disk array, where they had tried kind of the flash caching thing and found that the flash caching, it kind of helped on reads a little bit, but did absolutely nothing on writes. So, and what they need to do is be able to deploy new virtual machines very rapidly for new business units that were kind of standing up these new environments. So that's where Nimbus came in, and it's been a phenomenal story for us and great validation for the technology. That being said, it's actually not even a top 3 customer of ours in terms of size today. This is another one of our customers, a very, very, very large news service provider that has elected to use Nimbus flash memory for Oracle databases once they get over a certain size. And this is something where we were baked off not only against a FAS 6000 with PAM cards, but a FAS 6000 actually fully populated with SSDs, which came in at an acquisition cost about 8x our solution, but was actually only about 10% faster than the 15K disk flavor of the same product. So I think it was sort of just great comparison of why you have to design something for the ground up. This was a tremendous win for us. We were able to achieve about a 3 to 5x performance advantage over their existing filer products. And this again, Oracle use case. Another Oracle use case that we have been able to talk about publicly was this company, Allen Group, where we displaced a very, very nice 3-par system, about 150 spindles, 15K, taking about 2/3 of a rack, beaten out by a 2U S-Class under $50,000, and we delivered about a 10x improvement. This is a public reference. We did a press release, and they've been just really, really happy with our technology. They've tripled their footprint around their technology since they bought the initial system.
How's the price comparison on the Gemini to the S?
Gemini has a higher entry cost because of the dual controllers. So Gemini minimum config is about 6 terabytes, and it's just under 100K. The price per gig on Gemini, though, is actually a little bit less, but you have that initial footprint that's bigger. And the reason the Gemini is a little bit less is because it uses the 2x nanometer technology, whereas the S and the E class use 3x nanometer technology.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Another customer. This one's really big. Again, one of the largest content providers in the world. Lots of Oracle databases. Looked at our solution as an alternative to Exadata. This customer actually brought in all the good stuff. Brought in all the flash array vendors. Bake off, direct, one-on-one, everyone against each other, and we won. And they selected another as a second source as well. But this has been a phenomenal win for us. This is actually as a use case all around InfiniBand. So they're doing native SRP block storage out of our device right into Oracle databases and serving up their clusters now that way. Another customer of ours out in New York on the MySQL side of things. This was another displacement against 3-par. In this particular case, it was actually iSCSI over 10 gig. We delivered about a 7x improvement over what they had with their existing disk array. And also we enabled them to recover about 75% of their rack space. This one I think is kind of a cool story. This customer is, we haven't done a press release with them, but they've endorsed us on LinkedIn and other social networks have gone out. What I like so much about this story is Longview is actually one of the preeminent NetApp resellers in Canada. I think they're the largest, or at least the top 3. But when it came to actually their internal SQL Server requirement, they purchased a Nimbus product to run that. So very exciting story. We were able to improve the performance about 6x over their existing disk array. This one's a pretty cool one, but Nimbus is actually involved in the national security of this country. Here, a project between Lockheed and Raytheon that's around image acquisition storage, where they needed to be able to ingest data at a very high data rate. We were able to deliver 6 gigabytes per second that was required for this use case. And they've deployed quite a considerable amount of our capacity for this. Here's a VMware View use case, one of our customers that does e-discovery. They actually have particularly I/O-intensive VMware View instances. And as such, even though it wasn't a whole lot of desktops, they actually had a lot of I/O from each of these virtual desktops that they were generating. So they actually went with one of our high availability E-classes to replace what was previously on a local SSD solution. Another customer, this again, Oracle, a market trading database company around energy trading. Again, very transaction sensitive. They went with our product and became a repeat customer within the first 4 months. This is another company, Loxagon. This is actually some pretty incredible performance figures they got running SQL Server on our device compared to their prior disk array. They actually saw their average transaction time go from what was taking about 10 seconds previously down to 0.2 seconds. So it was a huge, huge performance boost for them. And this was on SQL Server. And I think we're getting to maybe the last two. Another customer, this one on VDI. This is actually with Citrix, doing Zen Desktop, a company called Vivison. They do optics for the aerospace industry. We delivered about a 16x improvement in their boot storm performance, and also helped them reduce their backup times pretty significantly. And lastly, an international customer I can talk about here, Corton. It's a Dutch company. They're a cloud services provider. They're using Nimbus for a little bit of everything. They're doing it for some Oracle, for some VMware, for some SQL Server. And based on the tests that they've completed with the product, we were able to reduce the disk latency factor by about 10x compared to where they were with their prior products.